right, so I have a question for those of us in the room today. Who here likes going to the grocery store? Anybody? There's a couple of y'all. There's more people in the 9:30 service. That's okay. I guess that says something about the 11 o'clock service, but I love the grocery store. I don't know what it is about the grocery store. I don't know if it's that like sweet fluorescent like lights flickering. I don't know if it's that smooth jazz. I don't know if it's because every week I get to come face to face with inflation. Like, I don't know what it is. But I love going. It is something that I legitimately enjoy doing. And most of the time, I'm bringing along 2 kids. And so I especially love when I get to go to the grocery store by myself, because that's my me time. I get to check out from the world around me. I put my headphones in, and I just cruise down the aisles. Like, that's what I do. This one time, though, a couple weeks ago, I'm in the grocery store, and I'm getting all of my stuff, and I'm taking my dear sweet time because it's my time to get away. And my wife is probably like wondering, like, what in the world is taking Chris so long? But I'm enjoying my time, and I get to the checkout line, and the person in front of me is doing something that drives me absolutely insane. So if you do this, I'm sorry, but I'm coming after you right now. They're at the checkout line, and they have their headphones in. And they're talking to the cashier, but not really, because they have their headphones in. And I'm sitting there, and I wish I could tell you that as a good pastor, I did not judge them at all. Because what I actually did as a pastor, I judged them so much in that moment. Because I'm looking at them, and I'm wondering, how in the world are you doing this? Take out your headphones. That's a person you're talking to. And I'm just getting puffed up with pride because I'm like, I'm so much better than this person. And I start contemplating, like, what would it look like if I take those headphones and I throw them across the room to make a statement? And then I go, like, I don't know what I do after that. So I don't do that. But then they go, and then I go. And I am so proud in this moment. So I take out my headphones, I put them in the case, I make this big show of it. I say hi to the cashier. And in this moment, y'all, I feel like I'm winning the Nobel Peace Prize. Like, I am doing so much for humanity, and I'm feeling so good about myself in comparison to this person who had their headphones in. But then this weird thing happens. I get a ding, and I grab my phone, and I look, and I have a work email. And that work email makes me start thinking, I was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to get this done, and now I'm feeling distracted, and now I'm feeling hurried. And in a moment, this person I was connected with, I completely turn my posture, and I'm down here. And I'm feeling hurried, I'm feeling rushed, I'm feeling busy, and I've just wondered, and I have no idea if there was actually anyone behind me, but I'm imagining that the person behind me, what they were thinking. Can't believe this guy. Get off your cell phone. That's a human being right there. I'm sure that they maybe had the inclination to want to take my phone and throw it across the room. Or even maybe they're on stage on a Sunday and be like, yo, I was behind this guy with a backwards hat on at HEB, and like he was on his phone. Isn't that ridiculous? Maybe he was nicer. Like, maybe he was like, you know what, that guy seems important. Maybe he's texting the Pentagon to solve some big world issue. I don't know. But I've just been pondering that. Like, what do they think of me? And when my judgment, I was judging this person of like, oh, you think you're so busy, you think you can't even connect with someone. And still in my moment, when confronted with my busyness and my hurry and my distractions, I did pretty much the exact same thing. Do you guys ever feel the weight of busyness? Do you feel the weight of feeling rushed? Do you feel the weight of hurry? I think if we're honest in this room today, I think that's something that we collectively at one point or another have probably struggled with, whether it's the things going on in our life or just the weight of the world around us, that we have this sense of like, I'm not doing enough and I've got to do more. Life is really full and we are limited, right? I only have so many hours in a day, I only have so many hours in a week. And so for me this week, it was a birthday week. And so that meant a lot of extra stuff. And so we had to get decorations and make sure that the presents are right and texting all the people that you're worried that are gonna forget about the party that's coming up. And then there's this thing of like, oh, I actually have to get my kids ready for school, and that there's that thing going on, and like just general maintenance of them and making sure they're okay. And then, oh, I also have this job, and we had the men's gathering on Monday, so that's an extra thing to do this week. And this constant weight of there's more, and there's more, and there's more. And you can be hearing me, and I think I've just raised the collective anxiety in this room by like 10. Because there's so many of you that are like, yeah, like I'm busy and I'm struggling with that. There's some of you that are way busier than I am. And sometimes I can believe this lie, like once my kids get older, I'm not gonna be busy anymore. And all of you parents with older kids are looking at me like, that guy is an idiot. Like, he doesn't know what's going on at all. And then there's also the people that are like, hey, once my kids go to college, then I'm not gonna be busy anymore. And the people that have walked through that are just laughing at that too. And then even like, well, maybe when I'm a grandparent, they're like, no, you're gonna be busy because I'm gonna be calling you like I need a date night with my wife, right? And so that's what happens, is that there's always these things that are weighing on us saying you need to do more and be more, and we only have so much time. And life's full. And so today, we're just going to be talking about this. I think it is in your best interest. I think it is definitely in my best interest to slow down and to look at the world around us and to take a step back and really ask the question, am I present in my reality right now? Or am I distracted? Am I busy? Am I lacking focus? Because the grim reality of this is, for me, is this, that I don't like myself when I'm busy. I don't like myself when I'm distracted. I don't like the father that I am when I'm busy. I don't like the husband that I am when I'm distracted. I hate when my wife is like, Chris, I've said this like 3 times. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, I know you did. But I struggle with it sometimes. And I don't like myself when I'm busy. And I think that the truth is y'all probably don't like me when I'm distracted. And y'all probably don't like yourself when you're distracted. We all collectively probably don't like each other when we're distracted and we're busy and we're hurried. I could give you guys 1,000 facts. I can give you 1,000 facts of the rise of hurry. I can give you all of these things about how anxiety has increased. I can tell you just about the concept of hurry sickness and the struggle that our society feels. But I don't feel the need to do that today because I think you all see it. Like, I don't think anyone in this room is coming in with like, oh no, I think we're less hurried today. Like, I don't think that's how anyone sees the world around us. And my question for you is, what would be the impact if when people looked at you as a Christian and they said, I see them and they're productive and they're doing a lot of things and yet they don't seem rushed, they don't seem hurried. I think in a society that desperately feels rushed and hurried all the time, one of the best witnesses we can have as Christians is like, hey, they're getting things done, but yet they seem like they have peace that I don't get. I think that's better than an apologetic sermon. I think that's better than just me feeling like I can answer a bunch of questions. It's just living a life in which you see me and go, man, Chris doesn't feel rushed. He doesn't feel hurried. How powerful would that be for your neighbors, for your coworkers, for the people that you live around? One of the beautiful things about the gospel is this, is that Jesus was never rushed. Like, we never get a picture of Jesus having to sprint because he's late to a meeting. There's never this moment in scripture where Jesus is like, hey, I'm sorry, I got stuck in traffic, even though he was just like behind and he just had to throw that excuse out. Jesus never said like, hey, sorry, one of the disciples is sick. I mean, I've never done that one before, but maybe you have. Of this constant, like, hey, I'm not enough. And Jesus, never in the gospel you get a sense of he's rushed. Actually, some of the best moments in the gospel is actually this, is that when Jesus is interrupted. There's these moments where people come and Jesus is talking and all of a sudden he's interrupted and you see who he is by how he handles that situation. He's patient, he's kind, he's loving, he turns his attention to the person in front of him. To y'all, to me, what do you look like when you're interrupted? I know when I'm like not feeling busy, I'm not feeling pressed, like you get a pretty good version of me. I can be kind, I can be not stressed out, but when I'm feeling rushed and if I feel like the clock is against me, some of my worst tendencies come out when I am interrupted. Some of the worst things about me happen. Like, I am such a worse dad when I am rushed. I am such a worse husband when I am rushed. I am a worse coworker here when I feel like I have to put it all together. What do you look like when you're interrupted? I want to take y'all back to the grocery store. So most Fridays, this is how my Fridays typically look. I get to take my daughter to the grocery store. And so she's 3 and she is super fun. And so most Fridays we're going to the grocery store and we have a routine. So the very first thing, we go to H-E-B, we get that little race car cart. You're like wondering who uses that? My daughter uses that, right? And we get in and the first thing that she says to me is this, is she goes, Daddy, phone. And what I do is I hand her my list and she goes, okay, I got it. And my daughter has this amazing thing that she's able to do that I'm not able to do, is that she can actually have my phone and she's not distracted by it. She actually, like, when we are in the grocery store, y'all, we are on mission. We are not gonna deviate from that list. If there's an item that I need that I forgot to put on there, I have to like pretend and like take the phone from her and add it and pretend like magic just happened, like, oh, it's been there the whole time. We always had strawberries on the list, Isla. But here's the bigger thing that she does, is that when we are in the grocery store, she is present. And what I mean by that is that if you are at H-E-B on a Friday and my daughter sees you, she will absolutely say hi to you that day. She'll say, hey, how you doing? And she'll also be like, hey, like giving random strangers high fives. And she's done this thing which makes me deeply uncomfortable all the time, but she's told so many random women they look beautiful that day. Like, it makes me deeply uncomfortable every time. But the reason why she's able to do it is because she is focused, she's on mission, but she's present. I think, when I think about my Christian life, what would my life look like if that's how people described me? Like, Chris is focused, He's productive. This isn't a fight against you guys getting things done, but when he's in the midst of my company, man, he's present. What would that do for your coworkers? What would that do for your family? If they were to describe you, one of the words they would use is not distracted, but present. I just look at my daughter and just like what she's able to do. And one of the reasons why she's able to do it is she hasn't been plagued by hurry. I have that for her. But my prayer is that I protect her from that. I help teach her of the right ways to do it, and that she would be the constant example of what it looks like to be present in people's reality. My prayer for myself is that I would be inspired by how she lives her life at HEB, and I would actually want to do that in the world around me. We're going to be in Luke 10 today, and this is a moment in the Gospels that y'all are going to be familiar with, and it's probably a passage that you've heard a sermon on before. But I think it's important for us, especially going into the holiday season, to look at this passage. And so what's going on in Luke 10 is that Jesus has just sent out the 72, and right before the passage we're going to be into today, he actually tells the story of the Good Samaritan. And I think Luke is strategic that he puts these two things together. And so there's this moment in the Good Samaritan story, which is really simple, that there's this guy who is going to a certain place, and all of a sudden he's beaten and he's left on the side of the road. And then there's these two religious people that walk by him, that see him and his hurt, whether they were busy or they ignored him or they didn't even notice it because they just are so caught up in their world, they walk right by him. And then there's this person, this Samaritan, who's an enemy of the Jewish people, who stops, sees him in his going, and he's patient, and he gives them a place to stay, and he pays for it, and he pays 2 days' wages, in fact, to sacrifice his own self for this guy. And so we have this passage of the Good Samaritan, and then we're going to jump into where we are right now, because I think Luke put these right next together for a reason. It says this: while they were traveling, he entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary who also sat at the Lord's feet and was listening to what he said, but Martha was distracted by her many tasks. And she came up and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to serve alone? So tell her to give me a hand." The Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has made the right choice, and it will not be taken away from her." Full disclosure, when I read this passage, I've read it many times, I have the same thought every time. Hey, Martha, you're right. Jesus, you're wrong in this situation. That's what my heart does, that every time I read it, my natural instinct is to look at that and be like, Martha, you're actually doing the right thing. Like, Jesus, you're being a little much right now. Like, you need to calm down. Martha knows what's going on, right? Like, that's what my heart does. Like, if you were to poll the office and you're like, okay, we're going to rank staff members, who is the most patient person on staff? I know I'm not cracking top 5 in that situation. I'm like bottom 5 in that. Or if you're like, hey, who's like the chill guy on staff? Who's the one that's just like, he's laid back, he's chill? I know, it's good self-awareness of me, that no one's naming me. I'm dead last probably in that situation. In fact, in between services, someone came up to me and they were introducing themselves. They're like, "Oh yeah, I recognize you. You're usually the guy that's like sprinting on Sunday mornings." And I was like, "Yep, that's a fair description of me." And so when I read this passage, I get Martha. Like Mary, I'm a little more confused by, like, hey, get up, help your sister out. Like, this is crazy, right? But one, I think that's my heart, and I need to work on that a little bit. But two, I think there's more going on. Like, I think when we read it, we kind of imagine Mary, like, sitting on a couch eating bonbons, like, right? That's how I picture Mary in that moment, but that's not what's going on. So Mary, it's really important for us to see what she was doing. She was sitting at the Lord's feet and listening to what he said. And for a Jewish person in their context, they know exactly what's going on here. And so it's triggering this idea of that she's sitting under the feet of her rabbi, and she's learning from him. And so in that day, if you wanted to become a rabbi, you wouldn't necessarily go to school for it. You would at the beginning, but after a certain point, you would say, hey, I want to be a rabbi, and so I'm going to go ask a certain person if I can follow them. And in the following of them and the learning from them, eventually, if you do well enough, that you would have this really honored position of while they are teaching, so you would be sitting at their feet. And so that's what Luke's pointing to. It's not this like flippant idea that Mary's just chilling, right? It's that Mary is sitting and being discipled by Jesus. So for me, like, I wouldn't describe myself as like, hey, I'm Chris, I went to Baylor, I'm the executive pastor at StoneBridge. I'd say I'm sitting under the feet of Rabbi Steve Bradley. Now, no one wants us to talk like that anymore, and I'm glad that we don't. But that's what it would look like. It was this concept of what the privilege to sit under the feet of the person teaching. And so when we see that with Mary, it's not this like idea like, oh, Mary is just relaxing. It's that she is so engrossed with what Jesus is saying is that she's forgetting about the other things and she's focused on the main thing. Do you struggle focusing on the main thing? Because Mary, in this passage, she's keeping the main thing. And I know I struggle often by the little things that I need to take care of and all the little things that we have to do. Before we can move on in this passage, there's a really important question for us today. Do you sit under the feet of Jesus? Because if you answer no to that, like, hey, I'm here and I'd love to talk to you about it, but it changes everything about how I approach the rest of this passage, because it starts with this, is the reason why Mary was able to not be distracted by the little things is because she was willing to sit under the feet of Jesus. I know for so often for me, it's like I love Jesus and I care about Jesus, but a lot of times I struggle with sitting under the feet of him. I want to make my life about me, and I want to be in control, and I want to be in charge, and I want to do the things. And like I'm a Christ follower, but yet if you look at my life, I think sometimes you just be like, no, you kind of follow what you want to do. I think for a lot of us, like when we think of Jesus on our priority list, right? Imagine this, like you grab a notepad and you begin to rank things, right? And you're like, okay, 1, father, 2, husband, however you would rank that. And then you get to like, okay, Jesus, like he's number 5 right now. And I feel guilty about that. And so I'm going to boost the stats a little bit. I'm going to do a couple more Bible studies. I'm going to join a small group. And those things are awesome and they're great. But I think we're missing how we should actually look at how we prioritize Jesus. I'll challenge you with this, that Jesus is not the person on the list, that he's the notepad that you're writing it on. And so for me, when I'm writing it down, number 1, being a good husband. The real question is this, is as a follower of Jesus, as someone sitting under the feet of my rabbi, how am I going to look at my being a husband? How do I look at being a father as somebody that sits under the feet of Jesus? And that begins to transform my priority list, because I don't see it as Jesus is another thing on the list. I see that Jesus is in the midst of it all. And in the midst of it all, I'm able to say, okay, as a follower of Jesus, this is how I should do it, and this is how I should live my life, and this is where I should go. But in my hurry, in my distractions, I'm not asking that question. I'm just doing, and I'm going, and I'm just going to the next thing, and to where I'm not slowing down and asking a really important thing of, am I even following Jesus right now? Am I sitting under his feet? And so my first thing is just like, man, are y'all keeping the main thing the main thing? Or are you getting caught up in the little things with the world around you? Pick back up in verse 38 and says this, while they were traveling, he entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. And she had a sister named Mary, who also sat at the Lord's feet and was listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. Hey, are you a Martha? It's like a safe space for you today. Like when you read that, do you get it? Does that resonate with your soul, that you are constantly feeling like there's these little tasks that I have to do? I love that there's the word there that's distracted. I think that's so telling of how my life actually looks so much, is because what hurriedness does is that it shifts my focus off the thing that most should be driving my life, and it makes me focused on all these other little things that are driving it. So here's how this looks. Most nights, this is how most nights go for me, is I have 2 little kids still, and so when I get home through those doors, I get treated like there's a parade that just happened, and so they're still at the age where they get excited to see me, and so they give me a hug, and they'll make me feel like I'm the world's best dad, even when I'm not. And then I'll go up to my wife, and she's Mary and Martha, because like she loves me, but there's also a home-cooked meal for me. It's pretty awesome. Find one that does both, right? And I'm feeling good, and so I'm feeling great, and we'll get to the dinner table, and we'll pray, and from an outside perspective, if you're just like looking through the window, you'd be like, man, Chris has got his life figured out. Like he knows what he's doing. Man, I want to live a life like that, but you don't see are the other moments where I'm there, but I'm not really there. Like I'm in my head, I'm still thinking about something from work, and so my son has to like repeat himself 4 times, not because he didn't say it right, but just because I'm checked out. Or man, something goes off on my phone and I feel the pressure and the hurriedness to like, I've got to answer this. I've got to make sure that this is taken care of because I'm important, and I got to make sure that this is done. And the lie that I am believing so often is that busyness and my hurriedness is what makes me important. And that the task that I do is where I get my worth from. And Jesus is going to challenge us on that today. Is like, hey, I'm the main thing. If you would see me as the main thing, then I think your life would be better. I think what happens so often is as we're distracted, as we're hurried, as we're moving at a pace that we were never meant to be in, that our spiritual life suffers. And so what can happen is you can be doing all the things. You've been going to Bible study, you've been going to small group, and you're still wondering, why in the world do I feel like I'm not growing at all? Like, I know that's happened to me, where it's like, man, I've been in a season of just constantly going, but I've been in my Bible, and yet I still don't feel that close to Jesus. Maybe put it this way for you. I have like a 25-minute commute most days to work. And so I can be driving, right? I'm driving on the highway, and all of a sudden 5 minutes goes by, and I'll be like, how in the world am I at exit 82 now? Like, and I just like freak out a little bit, like, oh, where was I? Or we were driving to Colorado this summer, and when I'm in the nothingness of Texas, right? When you're just driving and you don't see nothing besides windmills. An hour can go by, and then all of a sudden I'm coming back to of like, how in the world did I just drive for an hour, and my body was doing it, and I wasn't like being unsafe, but yet I don't remember how I got here. I think for a lot of us, our spiritual life can mimic that a lot of, hey, I'm doing the things, and I'm going through the motions, and I'm going to small group, and I'm doing all of these things, and yet because I'm so busy and I'm so frenetic and I am not slowing down, I go a year from now and I just go, how did I get here? How do I feel so far from Jesus? And not that you were doing anything bad, but it's because you were so distracted by all this little stuff that you lost sight of the main thing. And so my challenge for us today is that we'd look back, and we wouldn't get so frenetic, that we wouldn't feel so hurried, that we wouldn't feel so rushed, and that we'd look to Jesus and all the things that we do, and that we would shift our focus back on where it needs to be. Because so often, man, I'm shifting, and I'm looking at the little things. So I have a big question for you today, one of them. What are the things only you can do? Like, what are the things in your life that you are the only one able to do it? I wrote down some of them for me. One of them is this, that I am the only person in my life that has the ability to grow my faith. Like, my wife can want that for me, y'all can want that for me, my small group can want that for me, but yet still at the end of the day, that I am the only person that can slow down enough to grow my faith and feel closer to Jesus. I'm the only person that can do that. People can want that for me, but that doesn't mean that it's gonna happen unless I buy in to keeping Jesus the main thing. Other one is this, that I am the only person that can be a father to my kids. I'm the only person that can be a husband to my wife. You are the only person that can be a father, a husband, a wife, or grandparents to the people around you. Another one is this, that I'm the only person that can be a coworker to the people I work with. Now, granted, you guys actually interact with all my coworkers, so this one doesn't work as well for me because you can actually be a good influence on them, but I can't go into your job and be the influence for the world around you. Like, if I went in for your job, they'd probably fire you and then they'd kick me out, right? They'd call security because I can't do that for you. I can't be a light to those people in your workplace. Another one, like, hey, I am, like, travel sports, I'm sure some of y'all are, like, fearful of, like, oh, is Chris gonna touch on that topic? I'm not, actually, because here's what I'd actually challenge you to do. You're the only people that can influence the people on your kids' sports team. Like, I can't do that. Like, I can't just keep showing up to your kids' games. I guess I could, but that'd be kind of weird, right? And my challenge for you is not that you would necessarily quit, maybe you need to because you need margin, but that you would be present with those people and recognize that you are the person that God called to them, not me. Only you can do that. What are the things only you can do? Like, when I'm in a season of hurry, I'm not focused on those things. I'm focused on all the other little things that need to happen. And I'm buying into these lies of like, if I don't get all those little things done, then the whole world might fall apart. But what are the only things that you can do? When I'm in a season of hurry, one of the best things that I do when I recognize that I've been distracted or my wife has pointed out that I've been distracted is this, that whenever I get home, the first thing I do is I take my phone and I put it away. I go find a drawer. There's like one special drawer that we put everything in. It's like where all the keys are too. And I'll take my phone because I don't have the self-control sometimes of when I'm distracted to not pick it up and want to send emails and send text messages. And so I'll grab it and I'll put it in the drawer. And there's this moment that happens in my heart of just this recognition of like, man, like that's got a control on me that I don't always give credit to it. So for me, that's one of the things that I do. Another one is this, that before I walk into the places that I know that I've been distracted in recently, like for me, like if I'm feeling like, man, I've been really distracted at the house, I'll get to the car and I'll park, and right before I walk in, I'll say a simple prayer. Lord, would you help me? Like I'm so focused on all the things going on at work. I'm so focused on the stuff going on with my family. Would you help me not miss the present reality of the people that I'm supposed to be with? Or if I'm feeling distracted at work of this thing that I'm doing here, that I would go, Lord, would you help me be present with the people that I'm about to interact with today? And those two things, those two very simple things, completely can start shifting my focus back on the main thing. So I don't know what it is for you. Like, I don't know for those of you that maybe aren't addicted to your phones, or those of you that aren't feeling the struggle of this, but what can you do as just like this body posture thing of signaling, man, I'm gonna be present. And I'm gonna be present in the people around me. We're gonna pick up back in 40, it says this, but Martha was distracted by her many tasks, and she came up and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to serve alone? So tell her to give me a hand. Like, this is a bold move by Martha at this point, right? Like, she's gotten to the point, not just now where she's frustrated, she's going up to Jesus and saying, Jesus, like, don't you see this? Don't you see that I'm doing all this work and Mary's just chilling eating bonbons? Like, what are you gonna do about it? The first thing I'll say is this, that Jesus can absolutely handle your anger, but like maybe like be smarter than Martha in this moment, right? Like, don't like go up to Jesus like, look at all that I'm doing, and point to somebody that's doing the right thing. Because here's what's happening for Martha is that in her hurry, in her like, I've got to figure it all out, I've got to do all of the things, that she's beginning to go from her focus being shifted, and now she's starting to get angry. And what's beginning to happen is that her kindness is starting to go. That her hurriedness is robbing her kindness. That it's stealing her ability to empathize with those around her. I know for me, that's one of the first things that goes. That when I'm distracted, when I'm caught up in the world around me, that my kindness is one of the very first things that goes. My ability to empathize with my kids and go and sit with them wanes. Because empathy isn't efficient. Like, it's not. Empathy takes me getting outside of my own self, outside of my own brain ideas, and sitting with people and saying, okay, I'm gonna take the time to take the focus off me and onto them. But when I'm hurried and I'm rushed and I'm distracted, that is so hard for me to do. And I think if you're honest, it might be hard for you to do too. And so if one of the things that you're just recognizing is like, I'm struggling with kindness, maybe I'll ask you this, are you struggling also with feeling rushed? Because what happens, there's just like this alarm going off in my head of Chris, you're not doing enough. And Chris, you need to do more, and I can't slow down because I'm not going to the Prince of Peace, the person that's literally there that can teach me it. I am struggling with my own self and my own worries and my own anxiety. But when I take the main thing and I make Jesus the main thing again, I can look at the world around me and I'm not looking like, what do? I'm looking at him. What happens when I'm rushed is I start looking at people differently. And I start to change who they are in my head. And they go from the people that they are to the tasks that they are doing for me. And so one of the things that begins to happen is that I kind of start seeing people as robots. And that's not a good thing. I'm not happy that I see people that way, but they start being kind of the tasks they do for me. And so the person at the coffee checkout line, she's kind of the robot that makes me coffee. Or the person that teaches my son's school, she's awesome, but when I'm rushed and distracted, I just see her as the task that she is, the person that teaches my son. When I'm rushed and hurried, that's what happens in my soul. But when I slow down and I shift my focus back to where it's supposed to be, they're no longer the computer malfunction that's going on in my life. They are the people created in the image of God. And what I begin to do is when I stop doing it like that, is I begin to put their humanity back on them, and I see, like, I might be rushed and I might be busy, but I see them as an image of God created by him, and that they're children and that they're worthy, and I don't have to do it all on my own, and I can look at them and just be present. Wouldn't that be different for the people that interacted with me? That they would think Chris isn't just doing things, but he's here. How would your life look different? If your kids saw you that way, if your family saw you that way, if your grandkids saw you that way, that like when you enter the room, man, you're present. And by doing that, you are also inviting them in to the presence of God. That's what you and I are called to be. And yet, for me, so often that's not what I'm doing. Continues on in verse 41, says this, the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary, which is like, just imagine how Martha's feeling right now. Mary has made the right choice. It will not be taken away from her. It's not like Martha is doing bad things. It's not like you and I don't think for me that my issue is that I'm like just living in debauchery. Like, that's not my struggle. But my struggle is I'm letting all these little things take away from the focus. The one thing, what's really happening in my soul is that I'm being robbed of peace and joy that is available to me. Like, imagine this. Like, she is literally distracted so much that the literal Prince of Peace, the person that can give peace that goes beyond all of our understanding, is literally sitting there and teaching and molding her sister, and she's missing it. And for me, how often am I able to go to Jesus, the person that can give me peace and that can quiet those things in my mind, and yet I go, Chris, you still got to do it. You got to do another thing. I'm constantly plagued by this concept of what if it doesn't all get done? What if it doesn't all get done? I'll go through all of them. Of like, what if, what if I have to take my kids through Chick-fil-A, or what if I don't send this email, or what if I don't make sure that all of this stuff is perfect, or what if the laundry doesn't get folded, or what if the house isn't perfect? And I'm just constantly plagued by this, like, what if, as if tomorrow morning y'all are gonna wake up, and you're gonna walk outside and you're gonna see a newspaper. And you're gonna be super confused because no one's got a newspaper in for years, and so you pick it up and you take it inside your house and you read it. And the first page would say this: Chris Gilchrist didn't get it all done. And that's silly, but that's my fear. And that's how I feel like the world would perceive me, as this guy that didn't get it all done. And honestly, y'all, I know that some of you are in this room, like, you can laugh at my newspaper thing, but that's how you feel too. That you're just plagued by, what if it doesn't get all done? What if the house doesn't look perfect when people come over? Like, what if? And my fear is driving my hurry and my rush. And my frenetic hurriedness is making me miss the things right in front of me. Are y'all distracted today? My hurry tells me this: that I've got to be the best husband, and I got to be the best dad, and if I got to be the best pastor, and I got to be the best son, and I got to be the best brother. And I'm believing all of these things over and over and over again, to where I'm plagued by the worry of the world and the fear of what if, to where I start being a worse dad and a worse husband and a worse son, because I am so consumed by all the little things that I have to get done. And Jesus is saying, hey, if you just come sit with the Prince of Peace, hey, we're gonna take care of those things, but yet you're gonna be a better dad because you're with me. And you're gonna be a better husband, and you're gonna be a better pastor, and you're gonna be a better son, because you're not trying to do it on your own. You're looking at your priority list and saying, like, Lord, I trust you with this, and I know that you're better at this than I am. Like, when I try to live my life and do my own way, I'm the one that messes it up, not God. And he's challenging us to say, hey, would you reorient your life? Would you find the right rhythm and the right steps so that you can see me again? This whole passage is pointing to this idea of you've got to start with the right priority set. And then from there, then you get to ask the tough questions. You can start with Jesus as the notepad, and then you can ask the hard ones. So, like, what are the non-negotiables in my life? What are the things that I need to take out? And listen, y'all, that list needs to be short. Like, one of the biggest struggles I do is that I believe that that non-negotiable list should be like 10 pages long. The truth is, it shouldn't. It should be like 5 things on there. What are the things that you're like, I can't miss this? What are your non-negotiables? And then from there, what good can you say no to in order to prioritize the better? What are the things that you need to say no to? Like, I've got a buddy that I work with who just struggles with this. I'm actually pretty good at saying no. This isn't one of my struggles, but what I struggle with is I say yes to a bunch of stuff because I believe that I can do it, and I believe I can do more, and I can take on everything, and then I'm like, well, how in the world did I get here? What are the things that you and I need to say no to, whether it's because your fear of displeasing people or your fear of not achieving or whatever that might be for you? What are the things that you need to say no to in order to prioritize the better? It says this in verse 42, but one thing is necessary. Mary has made the right choice, and it will not be taken away from her. Don't lose sight that it's not that Jesus isn't saying Martha made bad choices. He's saying Mary made the best one. In your heart, what choices are you making that are good things? Like, my busyness is not on bad things, but they're on things that are short of the Prince of Peace, the person that holds the universe in his hands. What are the things that I'm distracting myself with? There's this passage that I've been thinking about this week, and it's the story of Jesus and Jairus. And so Jairus comes to Jesus' house and says, hey, my daughter's sick, and she's gonna die if you don't do anything about it. And I've tried all these other things, and she's gonna die. Jesus, can you do something about it? And he goes, yes, because he's gracious. And so they start walking. And it's a busy day, and Jesus has gained in popularity, and so people are starting to swarm them, and the crowd's getting tight, and I'm sure Jairus is freaking out, like, we just gotta get through. Like, my daughter is sick. What are we gonna do? And then there's this moment where there's another person in the crowd. It's this woman that's been struggling for years and years and years with a sickness. And because of that sickness, she's an outcast in society. And all of a sudden she believes, like, if I could just touch his robe, then maybe I would be healed. And she does. And then Jesus does this radical thing. He could have just healed her and moved on, but he doesn't. He turns and gives her his presence. And then from there, they keep going, and they get to Jairus' house, and they're like, oh man, my daughter died because we were too slow, and yet because Jesus is loving and merciful, he saves her too. And that passage has just got me thinking in my own heart, in my own life, who am I missing? As I'm walking and I'm sprinting and I'm rushing and I'm distracted, who are the people around me that are getting neglected? Who are the people that God has called me to minister to that I am just absolutely missing because I am not slowing down? Who are we missing? The beauty of the gospel is this, that in my hurry and in my distractions and in my frenetic pace, that Jesus doesn't miss me and that Jesus doesn't miss you. That he doesn't look at you and go, well, Chris is too busy, so I'm not going to be there when he needs me. Or like, hey, I'm just checking out because this guy just can't get it anymore. No, in fact, that he loves us so much that he said, I'm going to take time out of divinity and I'm going to come down for you and I'm going to slow down and meet people and love on people. And then I'm going to go to the cross for you because I am willing to do that because I love you, because I'm willing to slow down for you. And gosh, that's challenging for me. The Prince of Peace, the person that created the cosmos, slows down for me, and yet so often in my heart, I'm not willing to slow down for the world around me. My prayer is this, that we'd look at our lives and we'd look at the world around us and we would see the people in our lives and that we wouldn't see it as just another thing to go by, that I would slow down and ask, who am I missing? And I would trust that Jesus' peace is going to be there because he promises that to me, and that I would love people the way in which Christ has called us to love the world. Hey, would y'all pray with me? Father, I pray that's true. Father, I pray that we and that I can slow down. Because, Lord, we live in a world that says that we got to do more and be more and achieve more and do all the things in the world. But, Father, I pray that I can slow down enough to see you. That I wouldn't miss you. Because, Lord, it's easy in my frenetic pace, even doing the things that you called us to do. Lord, it's easy to miss you because we're trying to go so fast. So, Lord, I pray I'd slow down. Lord, I pray we would slow down, and not slow down to be lazy, but Lord, to slow down so that we could see you. And we wouldn't lose sight of you, that we wouldn't lose sight of the fact that you're with us, that you're beside us, that you go before us, and that you're right there. And all we have to do to experience your peace and your joy is just turn. So Father, I pray we'd turn. That I wouldn't think that I've got to do it on my own, that I don't have to hold the weight of the world on my shoulders, that I don't have to live in the fear of what if, but Lord, I can just be with you. I can be with you in the fact that you offer me peace, you offer me joy, you offer me your kindness, and you offer me your love, and all I have to do to receive it is slow down and turn. So that's my prayer, Lord. Not just for the people here, but for my own heart too, Lord, that you would do a work in me to where I don't have to feel the need to do it all, but Lord, that I'm okay with the fact that you've already done it all. And that, Lord, that you are worthy of so much, and that, Father, that I repent for the times that I don't show that. So, Lord, we love you. We trust you. We know that you have good things for us and that you're not leading us into bad things, but you're leading us to greener pastures. So, Father, we love you and trust you, and we pray all these things in your Son's name. Amen.